years later, she's still alive. So she says the irony of all ironies is, I was jilted at the altar, and now it looks like I'm not even going to get to die when I thought I was going to die. Finally, there is her death. But notice that the jilting happened years before, when she thought she was going to get married and then the man left. And now all of a sudden she's looking for a sign. The final lines of the story. God, give a sign. In other words, this deeply religious woman is looking for God at the moment of her death. For the second time, there was no sign. That is to say, she feels jilted by God and her faith at the final moment when she should be drawing on her faith. Many have read this story as a dark, notice, endless darkness, right, is what we have here. Her body was now only a deeper mass of shadow in an endless darkness, and this darkness would curl around the light and swallow it up. God, give me a sign. For the second time, there was no sign. Again, no bridegroom and the priest in the house. She could not remember any other sorrow because this grief wiped them all away. There's nothing more cruel than this. The final lines of the story. She stretched herself with a deep breath and blew out the light. Let's begin, as we analyze now and do our final annotations of the story, with the title. Notice it is the jilting. We get this now, the jilting both at her wedding as well as potentially the jilting at her death, of Granny Weatherall. What's up with the word granny? Write down in your notes, what do you think is up with the word granny at level 2A? What do you think is going on? Why don't they actually give the name of this woman? Why do they why does Ann Porter name her as Granny? There's a lot of answers to this. One answer to this is simply that we want to emphasize in the story the longevity of her life. She's lived a long time. She's been through a lot. She's done a lot. She's seen a lot. Her children are trying to understand at the end of her life this situation. It's pretty clear that maybe she's not spoken a lot about being left at the altar when she was supposed to get married. And there she was standing next to the priest and the man is not there. And she has to come to terms and live with that. Okay, we've worked through level 1. You could argue this is a story about a woman who in her final moments of life is concentrating on a prior experience that haunts her still, and she's got to come to terms with it. Let's talk about 2A really quickly. Messages, themes in a story like this. Obviously, one of the major messages of this story is the ways in which life is so cyclical, right? So she's jilted at the altar. She finds John a good man. She raises all these children. She becomes a grandmother. And now in her death, when she's looking for some kind of comfort, a sign from God, she feels jilted again. A dark story in the ending, maybe we would say. Another possible theme of this story is, of course, the idea that surprise is something she hates, but surprise is something she has to continue to have to live with and deal with. Obviously, a third possible message here is the one about youth and old age. The tension between, on the one hand, when you are young and you're trying to grow up, and then when you finally get old, you're trying to remember all of the experiences of your past. Of course, at 2B, we've already mentioned it, the power of stream of consciousness. Notice how Katherine Ann Porter is able to kind of pull you into the story, right? And you start to identify with Granny's stream of consciousness, her thoughts, trying to move from one thing to the other. At level 3, as we try to relate to a text like this, obviously at 3A we can ask about other titles that come to mind, where, for example, maybe an older person is trying to come to terms with the fact that he or she is about to die. Or the son or daughter is trying to come to terms with the fact that the aging parent is about to die, and yet doesn't want to quite let go. We think of Dylan Thomas's classic poem, Rage, Rage Against the Dying of the Light, a son speaking to his father when it comes time to die. Don't go quietly, you fight all the way to the end. In this story, of course, we also have the notion of trying to come to terms with a situation that's happened years before. What for you is a title that comes to mind? A movie, a a TV show, where the individual is trying to come to terms with something that happened long, long ago, and still it's here, still it's in the mind, it's bothering, it's troubling. We obviously think about Emily Dickinson's kind of approach to thinking about death through her poetic lines, and to imagine what it's like. I heard a fly buzz when I died. We played the game of that poem. What it's like to imagine what death will be like at the moment of your death. We have sometimes said that maybe for all of us at the moment of our death, we all speak the same words. They are simply the words, "Oh my God." The question is the inflection of the voice. For most people, they will speak the words, "Oh my God," as, "Oh man, what have I done with my life? I wish I could have had maybe different choices made." Finally, 3B, how do you relate to a title like this? Well, there's any number of possible ideas. Let me help you through that one as well. One possible way to relate to a story like this is to imagine what it will be like when the people who have raised you become old. In other words, you will be old, but they are maybe still alive as older than you. What do you imagine will be the things they think about in regards to you, in regards to the way that you live together with them? Do you see those people who raised you coming at the end of their life to their death with joy or with terror, with hope or with desperation, maybe sadness of a kind that things were not done the way they should be? The other side of this, of course, and this is the brilliance of a great story, is that you cannot help but crawl into the mind of Granny and wonder that if you live to be 80, 85, 90, what will that be like for you at the moment of death as you begin to reflect back over your life? What will be the regrets? What will be the joys? Notice the ways in which Granny keeps thinking about her children, maybe even her grandchildren. The power of a great story, the compelling way in which a really fine writer can put you right into the character's mind. I hope you've enjoyed the study of the story. Thank you very much.